I was just having some fun playing with the Orb, which is one of the powerful and fun features included in Omnisphere. With the Orb, we can load up a patch and use the Orb to manipulate and modify that patch in many different ways. You can record some of your motions with the Orb and have that saved and play back as part of the patch. And you can also use the Orb as a modulation source. Let's say you want to control the cutoff frequency of a filter. And if you have an iPad, you can download the free OmniTR app and use that iPad to control the Orb wirelessly as well. Let's take a closer look at how the Orb works. Okay, the first thing we need to do is turn the Orb on, and we can do that by clicking on this Orb tab here and clicking on this power button right here. With this patch that I've selected, you can hear how moving the Orb around affects the sound in different ways. The parameters that are affected will be different from patch to patch, but will always change the sound in either a subtle or radical way, which makes sense for the patch itself. If I want to scale back on how intense the sound manipulation is, I can adjust it by using the depth slider, which is right here. And the higher that I set this slider, the more extreme the changes will be when I use the Orb to manipulate the patch. So if I want to make these changes a little bit less extreme, I can scale back on the slider like this. With this inertia button on, the Orb will continue to move around after it is set in motion. The amount slider here controls the speed and the duration of the inertia. The higher the inertia amount slider is set, the faster and longer the Orb will move around. When turned all the way up, the Orb will continue to move indefinitely. The attractor button causes the Orb to behave a bit like a nonlinear pendulum. So by turning it on, the trajectory will lead to points that will arbitrarily be far apart, and it will swing back and forth. If I want to choose a different set of parameters that get affected, I can roll the dice by pressing this button here and generate an entirely new set. Now I'm going to use the OmniTR app on my iPad to control the Orb, so we can have a look at some of the parameters that get chosen when we roll the dice. As I mentioned earlier, the OmniTR iPad app is free, and you can download it from the App Store. OmniTR gives you wireless two-way communication between your iPad and your computer, and offers multi-touch patch selection, remote browsing and editing of patches and multis, and as we can see here, also the ability to remotely control the Orb. Check out some of the different variations I get each time I press the dice button. Sometimes it may either add some FM or wave shaping textures to the patch, while other times it may add some effects like reverb, delay, or phaser. Another cool feature of the Orb is that you can record and replay your movements, and you can save them as part of your patch. So you can either have the recorded movement start when you play the first note of a legato phrase, or it will follow the song position, but you have to select that before you actually start recording. I can either record a few seconds of the speed and trajectory of my movements by using motion, or I can record more precise movements over the span of 1, 2, or 4 bars. We can also use the movements of the Orb as a source for modulation in our patch, and setting up the Orb as a modulation source is pretty quick and easy when we use the FlexMod system. Just right-click on the parameter or parameters that you want to modulate, and choose the Orb as the source. For this example, let's use the Orb to modulate the aux-send amount to the interspace effect, and also control some frequencies of the quad resonator effect. In the modulation routing window over here, we can adjust the amount of modulation using the source slider, change the range and starting point using the target slider, and also invert or reverse the value. We can also control the orb from an external MIDI controller, or automate it using our DAW. Just right-click on the orb, and we can assign both the radius and the angle to 2 different controller numbers for use with a MIDI controller. I'll use my Keith McMillan Cuneo as the source here. And by selecting Enable Host Automation here, we can also record any of the movements that we make with the orb directly into our DAW. You may have to configure your DAW to accept the automation before you start recording. So as you can see, the orb is a really fun and powerful way to modify, manipulate, and control sounds in Omnisphere. Try it out on your next project and see what kind of modifications and sound you come up with as well. And I'll see you soon with some more creative tips. Bye.